Welcome to the Bothell City Council meeting of August 13th, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All council members are here. Meeting agenda approval. I need to pull, do we have the AB for that? AB 19-130, the Shoreline Master Plan. Is there anything else that anybody would like to see changed in the agenda? Nope, we're good. Okay. Public engagement opportunities. On Track Bothell Railroad History, the second of a 4-part series, Thursday, August 15th at the Bothell Library at 7 p.m. Music in the Parks concert series, Friday through August 23rd at North Creek Sports Field number 3 from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Just Kidding Around concert series, Wednesday through August 21st at the Park at Bothell Landing Amphitheater from 11 a.m. to noon. Pop-up dog park at the Park at Bothell Landing August 1st through September 15th. There will be a closing ceremony on September 15th featuring a costume pet parade. That's funny. The next is the visit City Hall now through October 25th to see the work of artist Kathleen McCarty on display in the lobby. Next on the agenda is the special presentation. We have a Sound Transit briefing on Sound Transit 3. Welcome.
Hello, hello. This is the PDF. This is the PDF. Oh. Fortunately. I think it actually brought the PowerPoint. That might be easier. That's just on the scroll. All right. So thank you for letting me be here tonight. I'm Paul Cornish. I'm the BRT project director. It's been a while since I was here last. What I'd like to do is give you a brief update on where we're at with the BRT, and briefly talk about the project itself and the schedule, talk about some community outreach that's been going on and will continue to go on, and then finally give you an update on what we had been calling the Bothell Connections, where we talked about where the 522 BRT and the 405 BRT are going to meet each other. So first I want to give you a quick overview. I think you've seen this. This is kind of weird. Before. So the 522 BRT is 8 miles in length. It runs from Shoreline to Bothell, then on to Woodinville. We connect 6 stations, 6 cities. These are the cities that came together in a coalition and worked with Sound Transit to get this on the SG3 ballot, and it passed, which is great, and we've been still working with the coalition as we move forward. We have 3 new parking facilities, a parking garage in Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, and here in Bothell. And we estimate about 8,800 riders a day by 2040. And what this map shows is what's in gold are the existing business and transit lanes. And the business and transit lanes are the lanes that the buses run in, but they're also the business access lanes. So folks turning right turns in and out of a business or a residence along there can use that lane as well. So they're not traveling in general purpose, taking the right turns in and out, but they're actually in those business and transit lanes. The blue lines, which are a little hard to see, are the gaps that we're filling in. There's a length of bat lane in Lake Forest Park on the lakeside that we need to complete as part of the project. There's a blue piece in Bothell, which is, we'll probably talk a little bit about tonight. That's where the Yakima Fruit Stand and the Montessori School are. And then what I've circled in red is another gap that's being filled in. That's being filled in jointly with Sound Transit and Bothell. This is the city's Stage 3 project where the city had done the design and the property acquisition and permitting, and then Sound Transit funded the construction. So that's a great example of the collaboration that is all going into making this project happen. So a quick timeline. We're currently in the planning stage. I like to say that our plans are about 5% level right now. We're looking to finish up the environmental documentation by middle of next year. At that point, we'll have the design up to about a 10% plan. So we're still working on those designs, so it's a great time to have that conversation. And then we'll start final design in 2020 and do design through 22, 23, and we can start construction. Because the goal is to have the BRT, which is the 522 BRT, and the 405 BRT open for operations in 2024. So we have been going through our public involvement process right now. We're focusing a lot on one-on-one meetings with adjacent property owners of businesses and residents, working with them, getting rights of entry, getting on their site, so we can just look at the site, talk to them about what they have as far as trucks coming in and out. How does their business work? In the case of a school, do they have where kids are dropped off and picked up? Well, how does this site work? What do they do on their site as we work that into the design of our project? We had a booth at Sustainamania, which I think was last weekend. We had about 200 folks stop by and talk to our staff. So that was great, and we're going to continue this quarter-wide outreach well into the fall as we get to a 10% plan, and then we'll continue it on all the way through our design process. So right now, we have sent out about 33 rights of entries, which are basically documents we're asking folks to voluntarily let us come on their property to do some survey work, maybe delineate a wetland if there's some sort of wetland on the site. In some cases, we do geotechnical borings. We might do some noise and vibration monitoring. It's really specific to the site, but we've been sending those right of entries out and ask if folks will let us do that. It's completely voluntary. You don't have to let us do that. And typically, we're on this site from about 1 to 3 days. And we've shown in this picture, which is a little hard to see, but we show by the Wayne curve on where the fruit stand is, the fruit market is, the Montessori school, because this is a very tight area. We're trying to fit all this in, and this is why these rights of entries and us getting on the site and working with the owners about how that site functions is so important as we move that design forward. But one thing I like to stress in the communication is that we are listening. You know, we've received over 100 emails, specifically with the Yakima Fruit Market. We've got lots of emails, we've got lots of postcards, and we are listening to that. We take that very seriously. That's why we like to have not only the public meetings, but the one-on meetings, actually get on the sites and talk about what's going on. You know, how can we make the best design that we can? We also have a commitment to the voters to deliver this project in 2024, which is why we're starting these conversations now. We want to have these conversations at this 5 to 10% design so we can have things worked out to move forward to get to that 2024 deadline. We want to be transparent. We want to have open conversations with anybody who's going to ride this system, owns property on the system, is affected by the system. That's why we're always trying to get out and have these meetings, and we're always looking to get on the site, have these discussions, and just talk about what's going on, what we can do, what we can't do. But let's see how we can come to some common resolution. And this is also a very collaborative effort because, as you know, 522 is a state route. Sound Transit has this project to deliver. The city has a lot of influence on this road. King County Metro runs on this road. So we have all these project partners that are collaborating along with the adjacent properties of how do we best come up with the design. We don't want to design this in a vacuum. So we want to have these conversations, get on these sites, look at these, talk about what we can and can't do to try to come up with the best design that we can. And that is roughly the first part of my presentation. I just wanted to reiterate, we're at the early stages of design. We're starting to have these conversations with property owners. We want to continue having these conversations. And the key to this is so they can work with us and the project team and figure out what exactly we have, what's the task in front of us, and how do we best work out to a design as best we can. So that's where we're at right now. It's a good spot to be in the project. It's a great time to have the conversations and be out on the site and see what's going on. I'm not talking about acquiring the property yet. We're still trying to get to that 5 to 10% to get those lines the best place we can to make sense for the project and all the users of the system as well. So that was my brief update on the outreach part. We can talk about that a little bit if you have some questions, or I can give you a quick update on the Bothell connection, which I think is a very exciting part of the project as well, particularly as it comes here in Bothell.
Do you guys have questions on the communications part? What was that? Yep. Nope. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. So last spring we did what we completed, which was a refined project for the I-405 BRT. We had identified where the stations were going to be. We started laying out the transit center down in Renton and a wide variety of things. And at that time, the dual express toll lines that existed today ended just north of Totem Lake. And we were going to be running the 405 BRT in the general purpose lanes, which means we would stop at the existing outside ramp stops at Canyon Park and at 195th, and then further down at Brickyard, which are all stops in the city of Bothell. But then with the spring legislative session, and I understand Bothell was very engaged with the state legislature about looking to fund the extension of those dual express toll lines up to State Route 522, which is what I've shown here on this map in orange. And what was funded was to go and actually put those express toll lanes in, which was great. So we had that new information to work with. We still had this workshop that we'd set up for March 29th, turned out to be 3 workshops to figure out where the 405 and 522 BRT, are they going to meet at 195th? They're going to meet at State Route 522. What are they going to do? So we set out to figure out what was the best solution for the BRT. And one thing we did identify early was, originally the 522 BRT was going to take every other bus to meet the 405 BRT. Like if you got on a 522 BRT in Bothell, every other bus. They're running at 10-minute headways, but that 20-minute bus is what's going to get you to the 405. And we figured out pretty quick that we can figure out how to connect every 522 BRT to the 405 BRT, which is great. So now we've doubled the amount of times those 2 routes actually collect. We set out for this workshop, and we spent 3 full days. I think all 3 full days are in these council chambers, except for the site visit that we took. I want to give a special shout out for Bothell staff and the deputy mayor as well, because a lot of time and effort was put into how do we solve this puzzle. This is really weird. I don't know where the rest of this is. Here we go. And the outcome of this workshop was, let's move those outside ramps at Canyon Park and 195th into the center of the 405. Canyon Park, move them directly into the center. Instead of it being at 195th, we're going to actually have that stop at State Route 522, slightly south of 195th. But to make this whole thing work, we needed to take the Brickyard station and move it to the center of the 405, which was not in the Sound Transit plan. We had a plan to put it on the shoulder, but the ramp, but not to put it in the center. But that was the takeaway. The group said, this is what you need to do. They also recognized the long-term plan for the 405 master plan is to actually add another BRT station at 195th, but that was a very expensive option that is still in the master plan, that when the state goes forward to prioritize their improvements, that'll be, part of the conversation is when you're going to get the 195th. But the group decided, and which we took to our elected leadership group, we think putting these 3 stops in the middle make a lot of sense. And I'm going to show you kind of what that does in a moment. So kind of to summarize it is Canyon Park, WashDOT is going to fund the inline stop itself as part of their Express tolling project. Down at the UW Bothell campus, which is 522 and I-405, again, as part of the state's project, they're going to fund the inline stop. When I say the stop, I mean the pad and the pullouts and whatnot. Sound Transit will come in and actually put the shelters on because those will be consistent throughout. So WashDOT's going to build that. And then we have that $75 million shortfall to move Brickyard to the center. So we had a couple things going here. One, we went to the System Expansion Committee last week and said, we think we have a great opportunity to get these buses from the general purpose lane on the north end of 405, get them in the express toll lane, and the travel times are really going to improve. And we said, we like to work with WashDOT, do project development, lay out the plans, do conceptual, find out what exactly it's going to take to put it in there, what exactly it's going to cost to build it. We've started to identify cost savings to offset the $75 million, but we said we really want to get in here and do this. We think it could be a good deal. And they said that makes sense to them for us to proceed with this project development. It doesn't mean it's going to make it to the project, but we need to do more work. I say we, us, Bothell, and WashDOT, to see what this takes. And the reason this would be so important if we could get this together is if you look at these running times right here at the page, this is the AM travel times between Linwood and Bellevue. Currently, a Sound Transit bus takes 57 minutes to make that run. The SD3 representative project that we started with a year ago got that down to about 50 to 55 minutes. We refined this project. This is what we had this spring. That running time got down to 46 to 51 minutes. But now if we can get all these stops in line so we can run in the express toll lanes, we expect that travel time to get down to about 33 to 38 minutes, which is an incredible time savings. And of course, along with that, we would expect the ridership to go up about 20% because there's a definite correlation between how fast your service is, how many folks you want to ride it. So with that, they've said, go ahead and do the project development. System expansion acted on it last Thursday. It's going to the full board next Thursday for their consideration. But as it stands now, we're looking to do that, see if we can build Brickyard, get all these stops in the city of Bothell in the center of the new 405 express toll lanes, and that really makes that time happen. And I like to mention this to you because it's definitely a big impact in Bothell, but we had so much effort from Bothell and Bothell staff and UW Bothell and Cascadia that I think it's a good story we like to tell. It made good sense to our system expansion. They're like, yeah, go out and figure out if this makes sense. We'll go back to them next year with the whole picture of the 405 BRT, what Brickyard's going to cost and everything else. But they're like, yeah, this is something worth pursuing. Let's look at this. Let's chase this down and then come back next year to get some direction from the board. So I would like to mention that. I like to get that as part of the 405 update because it's so specific to Bothell and everything we've been working together on. I know that was brief, but that was my update for today. Was the outreach that's going on, working with property owners, trying to develop our plans, get to that 5% design level, walking the site, seeing how folks work, their properties work, and how they work on their properties. And then I also wanted to give you this 405 update because it's a real good story to tell, I believe. The system expansion, our board is right in the middle of considering to do it. And that's what I wanted to kind of share with you today because it's been a while since we've been here, and then answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Who's got questions or who would like to go first? Councilmember Zorns.
Just a brief comment. One, thank you for being our point person, because I know you take a lot of flack, and I don't want to, I know you've probably heard this before, throw you under the bus, but there is, and I just want to thank you for your keen interest on how important Yakima Fruit Stand is to the people of Bothell. Bothell. A lot of what you're doing is moving people through Bothell, but the Yakima Fruit Market is part of not just people who live in Bothell, but people who go through Bothell. I mean, I have heard a number of emails from people who don't live directly in Bothell, but really care about that fruit market. So we'll be watching.
Absolutely.
And thank you for coming before us, because I know
Thank you, Philip, for having me.
you're getting a little heat.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yakima Fruit Stand. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from a number of citizens, and I don't think they're going to be real happy. So I hope you stay and take a listen to what they're feeling. And I think what they're feeling is they're feeling that the Yakima Fruit Stand is part of Bothell and has been part of Bothell for, 50, 60 years. And how many?
81.
Sorry, 81 years. I stand corrected. And everybody uses it and everybody wants it. I'm not sure what you can do, and I'm not an engineer, but I know that there's some road to the south, east of there, that wouldn't impact anybody other than that owner of that property, and you'd be taking part of that away. If you take away what you're suggesting to take away, that would have a huge impact on that business. And please, listen, you said you're going on outreach. Listen to what the people are saying.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Olson?
I just had a question. Typically in the BRT projects, when is the right-of-way acquired, or when does that process occur?
Typically, we start the right-of-way acquisition process after we've finished the preliminary engineering and done the environmental, I call it the environmental clearance. It's the SEPA checklist and things like that. We have done some early acquisitions for the BRT because there's some properties that were for sale that have been identified as sites for like this, typically like the South Renton Transit Center and the bus base, and a project down in another project in Renton. But typically we wait till we get the design, we know exactly where we're going to put these lines, so we're not trying to buy property and move lines at the same time, because that just frustrates everybody.
Yeah, so it's still a little ways off.
It's a little ways off, but it's a critical path item, so that's why we want to have these conversations now and get these lines down on paper.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember McAuliffe?
Thank you. So what I would really like to see you do, if you could, is first of all, communicate with all of the people that really have emailed us and emailed you, so that they know when they should appear and what the process is. Because sometimes people, there's a lot of meetings, I understand that, but a lot of them don't know where they are and when they are. So that communication is really critical. The other thing is I would like to see Sound Transit do some options. So you can either do this along the corridor, or there's another option which you might consider. So I'd like you to bring those forward as well.
Deputy Mayor?
Thanks for coming. I don't have to give a committee report now because you've been here. I wanted to thank you for looking at the Brickyard Road and making that change, because I think that change is really critical to the timing of the BRT and the ridership. And I hope that change is indicative of your willingness to work with the community to make sure that Yakima Fruit Market is saved. So I have hope. Thank you.
You bet.
Councilmember McNeil?
Thank you, Mayor. So I think you're kind of hearing a consensus on the council here that the Yakima Fruit Market is near and dear to our community. It's been around 81 years, I think, as you heard. But the thing that I heard from you is community outreach and reaching out to the community and listening to the community. I think it's important that Sound Transit does take that approach on this project. One of the things that I'm unsure of is how that project's actually going to look in front of that business, but also along those lines, what other businesses are affected? Are there major businesses affected within our community? You had mentioned the bat lanes and being able to use those for business access and transit in and out of those businesses, understanding that project holistically, how that project's going to work today and in the future, so that we're not back here again in the future talking about this exact same model. So I think community outreach is the most important, in making sure that you're keeping the community updated on the progress on what's going on, both on the 405 and on the 522, I think is going to be key.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now you get me. Just kidding. Excellent improvements on the 405. I mean, that head time, or what do you guys call it? Headway? Headway. In half. I mean, that's amazing. So.
Oh yeah, travel time. It's It's nice.
I might actually use the bus now.
There we go.
Just kidding. So with that, I also just want to say, like, I know it's super early in the process of looking at the 522 bat lanes. We've gotten a pretty amazing amount of feedback from the community. So I just wanted to, if you could maybe tell them, like, so how decisions, where is it appropriate for the public to engage Sound Transit in the decision-making process? Because I know you guys have probably regularly scheduled meetings of the board, or is that where they should engage? Because that's what they're asking us, and I don't really quite have the right answer for when it's appropriate for, if they want to come and speak and meet the people that are making these decisions.
Right, well, the next board action will probably be sometime next year, but we do have this ongoing outreach, and we're gearing up for our next round of outreach later this fall. Typically, we want to do that when the summer's over, when we get more folks in town, and that'd be the place to start, and that's when we can really start engaging the community and talk, and kind of lay out what the steps are. Because right now, I know I'm going back to the board sometime next year, but that's a while from now. But I think the engagement that we've been talking about as we're starting to ramp up again, that is really the best place to start with where we're at with the project.
Okay. And then, so if the public wanted to know where the board meets, that's on their website and posted. They can go look on
yes,
soundtransit.
yes.
What is it? Org?
.org.
It's an org? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Are you going to stay?
Oh, yeah.
You staying too? All right. Good. All right. I think everybody had a chance to talk. We're moving on to. Uh-oh. Oh, great. I've got the wrong agenda up. Oh, I don't. Okay, we're good. City manager, city council, committee reports. Does anybody have a committee report? City manager? You got pictures of the trip or anything you want to show? That's good. Councilmember Agnew.
Yes, the NPRSA, we've been working for quite a while now, trying to figure out how to improve the facility. The facility is the second largest senior center in the United States, and it offers an abundance of services. It was built 30 years ago on tax dollars. The voters decided that they wanted to have a senior center, but unfortunately, nobody really put a whole lot of money into maintenance. There was never any provisions for maintenance. And maintenance has been basically up to City of Bothell, the City of Kenmore, the City of Woodinville, King County, and Snohomish County. And they're the ones that have been actually fitting some of the maintenance requirements for that. We've had some long discussions, and we're going to put on the ballot in November a levy for the North Shore Senior Center. And in that levy, we're going to ask for about 4 cents, up to 4 cents per thousand of assessed value, which means on a $500,000 house, you'd pay about $25 a year. And that will give them the maintenance that they need to exist and move forward. So that's the news coming out of the NPRSA.
All right. Any other committee reports? Councilmember Olson?
So yeah, the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee. So just the update on that is the PSRC 2050 Vision Plan. The draft plan is out for review. I know the county and our city development is reviewing that for our comments, how we want to comment on how it affects us in the region. And I think that's due in the middle of September. There's a 60-day review period for that.
All right, Councilmember Olson. Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to tack on to Councilmember Agnew and thank both Councilmember Agnew and Olson for their work, tireless work that they had on the NPRSA. This past session, we've had a lot of work that we've tried to accomplish. We've had county council members from Snohomish County, King County, president meetings, as well as Woodinville city council members and Kenmore city council members. The issues that our senior center has, the facilities have at those senior centers some of them are pretty dire. So we received a report of approximately $5 million over a 10-year period of time of repairs that need to be on those facilities. And it's important that those facilities maintain and stay open for the seniors within our community, because they're not just Bothell seniors. We have seniors coming from as far as Mill Creek. We have seniors coming from Kirkland. As Councilmember Agnew stated, the second largest, but 62% of the seniors within our communities locally around here are low income that attend those. And it was brought to my attention this past week that that senior center is one of the only senior centers that offer services for people with Parkinson's. So it's imperative that we find a way to help the senior center, the facilities, and make sure that they're maintained. So thank you.
Does anybody else have a committee report? All right, moving on. So we're to the visitor comment period. Each person addressing the council will give his or her name in an audible tone of voice for the record, and unless the council grants further time, shall limit their address to 3 minutes. No person other than the council and the person having the floor will be permitted to enter into any discussion either directly or through a member of the council without the permission of the mayor. And the first one is Karen Bagnell Pogue. Oh, all right.
Hi. Thank you, Council, for your warm words. Thank you, Paul, for being here and presenting today. My husband, Stuart Pogue, and I have owned the fruit market for 32 years. We bought it from his parents in 1970. Our children work with us. We're currently training our grandchildren. Yakima Fruit Market has been one constant in Bothell since 1938. We specialize in local crops direct from the farm, and it's peach season now, so the Freestones are in for all you canning people. We have Skagit Valley berries and Whatcom County berries and Puyallup green beans. New crop apples are rolling in, and pretty soon our nursery will become a pumpkin patch. But our market stands in the path of Sound Transit's bus lane. 5 weeks ago, we received a generic letter from Sound Transit about the project. 2 weeks ago, we had a 20-minute meet and greet with Sound Transit, at which time no real solid information was available other than that their shovels will be in our ground in 2023. That's our ground that has already been usurped twice before for road enlargements. We've given, and now we need to ask for a little giving in return. My family and I are begging you to help our market remain in place and count down to its 100th anniversary. We're not naive. We understand that the bus lane is a done deal. The one glimmer of hope we had from our meet and greet was that Sound Transit will make us, quote, whole. And we beg your help in advocating for that to Sound Transit. We own the property that goes up behind the hill to the market. We feel that with site remediation, we could remain at the site intact. And we certainly don't believe that you can preserve the character and charm of a town by wiping an 81-year-old heritage business off the map. And from the bottom of our hearts, we thank all our supporters for the love that they've shown us and the market. And if you need more info, please visit our Facebook account. Council, we've asked, we're begging you, please help us. Your grandkids and your great-grandkids are going to need summer jobs at Yakima Fruit Market to pay for their jetpacks. Thank you.
Next is Monica Bagnell.
Hello, everyone. I'll try not to get too teared up here. I've been working at the Yakima Fruit Market since I was 6 years old, making balloon animals since JP Patches was able to still come and visit. I've had the privilege to work my way up the chain of command to be safety manager. Now that I'm a certified EMT, I know that the bus lane needs to happen, and I'm just asking for you to weigh the pros and the cons. The pros would be to have a bus lane, to have more riders, to have a shorter riding session for them. But the cons would mean loss of jobs for hundreds of teens, and potentially hundreds of teens, especially like myself, that's gone through there. It was my first and longest running job. Another con would be that local farmers and growers could not bring their produce to us. A lot of them call in daily saying, hey, we got 20 boxes of apples, you want it? They wouldn't be able to do that anywhere else. The cons would also be customers could no longer get their fresh produce, their canning supplies, or their Christmas trees, which I know I probably have a family presidents here, but I'd say we probably have the best produce and Christmas trees you can buy. And I'm just asking that you weigh those pros and those cons, because there seems to be a lot more cons than pros at this point, and that you could help with Sound Transit. Thank you for coming today, with mitigating our land so we can stay, and maybe one day my grandkids will work for the Pogues' grandkids and we can keep that heritage running. Thank you for your time.
Next is Phil Keenist.
My paperwork, right? First of all, I'm surprised as a retired councilman that you're in session in the middle of August. So I wasn't quite prepared to come down tonight, but when I heard from the Pogues, I thought it was imperative that we get on the ball real quick and get down here and talk about remediation so that they could keep their business. I think there are alternatives across the street to widen that a little more, push more of it to the east and get away from the fruit market. I think that can be explored both by the transit system and yourselves. Anyway, that's about all I have to say. I think the Pogues have made their statement, and I support it. And I wish you would genuinely look very hard at this project. I wasn't aware that it had gotten to the point where they were already talking to them about what the impact was going to be on their business, or I would have been on top of this a long time ago. Thank you.
Next is Sue Keenist.
I'm Sue Keenist from Bothell, Washington. I have tears in my eyes. I didn't expect to have tears in my eyes, but I do have tears in my eyes. Given that I first heard about this meeting at 3 p.m. this afternoon, I have not prepared a 3-minute speech. Maybe I wasn't paying attention to the proper notices, but surely you, the council, knew that this meeting and the Sound Transit plans would drastically affect many small businesses along this 522 route. Brooks Biddle, Montessori School, the Carriage Shop, and Yakima Fruit Market. Whatever the plans between the city of Bothell and Sound Transit, please do not try to move Yakima Fruit. A lot of people are talking, well, let's move it over there. Let's move it down there. You can't move it. It just wouldn't be historically correct to move it. Just move Sound Transit lanes to the south. I am in favor of bus lanes for sure, but don't let Sound Transit dictate what's important to Bothell residents. We, the public, apparently have just 2 weeks to respond to some of this, the plans. I know they're talking with businesses, but we don't know anything. The public doesn't know much about this. But I can tell you that there will be thousands of community members who will be opposed to closing down the market. Just try to remove some of the iconic sites in Bothell, like Pop Keeney, or the open space at Wayne Golf Course, or the Ranch Drive-In for that matter, or Yakima Fruit. And you will be surprised what a backlash will occur in Bothell. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Simon Muld. Penmanship.
Sorry. Simon Mould from Bothell. Thank you very much. I've lived in Bothell for 23 years. I've emigrated here from the UK. I have to say that 23 years ago, Bothell was just a kind of an ordinary town. And in the last number of years, we've seen such a dramatic, wonderful change to Bothell. And I want to thank the council for the leadership that they provided. Bothell's become a very hip, trendy, fun place to be. We've actually got some great restaurants to go to and some great places to hang out downtown. It's a great place. But all of that change can't come at the cost of eliminating some of our key institutions, of which, of course, Yakima Fruit Market is. In fact, actually, as you look at some of the new things that have come into Bothell, we've got a lot of great restaurants and bars, which is wonderful. But there's not actually a whole lot of retail downtown for us to kind of go in and out of. And Yakima Fruit Market is one of the kind of the iconic retail institutions, in a sense, right here in the city of Bothell. I also firmly understand and recognize as we grow as a city, we got to have organizations like Sound Transit to expand our capacity to move people around. So that's a given. So if there's a way for the city council to help out Yakima Fruit Market to figure out how to mitigate and how to negotiate with Sound Transit, I think we as a community would love to see that happen. I'm not opposed to seeing Yakima Fruit Market maybe even being moved into this right here in the center. We've got a lot of green areas that are open. I don't know what the plans are for those. But if it was within walking distance to all of these new apartment complexes, a lot of the people that are moving into these areas, they love fruit and vegetables. They love shopping locally and making sure they're buying produce that's from local, farming communities. And I think it would only increase the capacity of the retail at Yakima Fruit Market if it was even more accessible to the downtown area. So thank you for hearing us, and we look forward to more hearings that maybe have a larger window of time for the community to get involved and have their voice heard. Thank you.
Thanks. So that's the end of the sheets that sign-up sheets I have. Does anybody else want to give public comment? Go ahead and come up and give your name for the record.
Steve Holmes, businessman and resident of Bothell. Thank you for, it seems like we have some good support from the City Council on the Yakima Food Market. We've had a lot of development and we had a lot of growth. A lot of people enjoy that. Let's keep the conversation on the growth of keeping the Yakima Fruit Market where it is. And let's concentrate on that. And still have the Sound Transit, but we can't get rid of a company that's been here so long and it's a part of our city would be not a very good thing. I think it's all you know. So let's talk about the growth of them and concentrate on that. Thank you.
Does anybody else go ahead and come up and give your name for the record?
Hi, my name is Sarah Mould. I'm gonna cry because Yakima Fruit Market means a lot to me and my family. First of all, I want to say before I get personal, it's the place where this community gathers to reconnect with one another, to trade recipes, to talk about their gardens. It is the most special place. And without it, I feel like we would really lose that sense of community that we have. My personal story, my life fell apart about 3 years ago. Yakima Fruit Market caught me. I went to work there for a few years. My son went to work there. And I've got to tell you, this family is the salt of the earth. They are a caring, creative, hardworking, loving family. And they are irreplaceable. And I guess my plea is that whatever you can do to preserve this very special place for the community, please do everything that you can. I can't imagine Bothell without them. I mean, I know all of you have probably shopped there and you see the little kids blowing bubbles in the bubble chair, and and you get somebody finding a perfect melon for you, and you get to trade a recipe and try something new, and I can't help it, but every time I read Karen's newsletter, I cry. So I'm a total YFM nerd. Anyway, just putting in my say for please do whatever you can to preserve it.
Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. All right. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. One item has been pulled. Is there a motion to approve the remainder?
So moved. Second.
We need a second. Okay, wow. Let's say that was moved by the Councilmember Agnew, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, place your vote. Passes unanimously. So I pulled AB 19-130, the Shoreline Master Plan, and I did so because out of a request of the staff, if you look at the effective, no wait, was it the effective date language? Yeah, okay. So what was posted online in our packet has since been corrected, so they requested that we make a motion to amend. Well, we don't need to do an amendment, right? We just approve it with the changes as noted?
Correct.
Okay. So if we could have a council member, one of you next to me ideally, take this and say, move to approve the Shoreline Master Program with the, just read this effective date in the record. Sorry, it's a little awkward.
I move to approve the Shoreline Master Plan update with the date, effective date. The SMP amendments adopted through this ordinance shall be effective 14 days after final action by the Department of Ecology as provided by RCW 90.58.090, parentheses 7.
I'll second it. I can second, yeah. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, does anybody need me to read it back again? Are we okay? It's just a Scribner thing, basically. Okay. Seeing no discussion, go ahead, please, your vote. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to new business, AB-19-131, amendments to the existing consent decree with Washington Department of Ecology and a settlement agreement between the City of Bothell Service Center Associates related to the cleanup of Bothell Service Center, Simon & Simon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, staff is bringing forward for Council consideration an amendment to the Bothell Service Center consent decree, accompanied by a settlement agreement with joint potential liable parties for the Bothell Service Center consent decree. In November 2017, staff presented the original consent decree for Bothell Service Center to implement the cleanup of contamination caused by dry cleaning solvents. And what I have on the screen there is just a map that's been provided in your council packet. And the dashed blue line represents the Bothell Service Center site and settlement area that was written into the consent decree. Since execution of this consent decree in February 2018, all the cleanup requirements detailed in the consent decree have been implemented, with some of them having been completed and others still ongoing. These requirements include the operation of the electrical resistance heating system, which our consultant, Kane Environmental, presented to Council in June of this year. It includes the operation of a bioremediation system, which started in March and will continue for 3 years. And this is where they put bugs in the ground to eat the contamination. It includes operation of a soil vapor extraction system, which will continue through September of this year. And we've also been doing some groundwater monitoring, of which we are required to do 8 quarters. We're on our 4th quarter right now. So during all this work this year, it was determined that we have commingling contamination with a neighboring site known as the former Wexler. And this is the site. This this blue solid line represents the petroleum contamination in groundwater. The green line represents the settlement area that we negotiated with the Department of Ecology. So what you're seeing here is a site within a site. And in ecology world, when you have that occurring, it's known as a commingled site, and it all becomes one big site. If, for instance, this contamination was happening out here and the tip was touching just an edge here, the site would expand in that direction. So those are the requirements that ecology has set up over the years. In order to address the commingled contamination, the city and the Department of Ecology have worked collaboratively to characterize this contamination and to develop technical documents to describe it, as well as the cleanup remedies that need to be implemented to address the contamination, both the solvent and the petroleum contamination. For Wexler settlement area, the selected cleanup remedy for petroleum is digging and hauling the dirt and treating the groundwater using similar components that have been used for the Bothell Service Center plume. And that's basically some product that they put in the groundwater. The amendment to the consent decree to incorporate Wexler is going to go out for a 30-day public comment period at the end of August, and this is an ecology-led process. Again, it's 30 days, so the public has an opportunity to comment on the consent decree amendment itself, as well as the technical documents that are included. Once the public comment is complete, Department of Ecology will adopt the CD amendment, consent decree amendment, and the technical documents that go along with it. If comments come back from the public and there are substantial changes made to those documents, they will amend those and maybe have an open house or a public hearing. If there are no changes to those documents, they adopt them, they take them to court, and they're signed by, I think, the Attorney General. Upon execution of the consent decree amendment, the cleanup work will be eligible for grant funding, and we've been very lucky. Bothell has been lobbying very hard to get some assistance with grant funding. And this cycle, 2019-2021 biennium, we have 2.35 million in remedial action grant funds that were secured from Ecology. In addition to that, we got 1.5 million in a state appropriation through the Department of Commerce. So that's going to go a long way towards helping us with our environmental cleanup work. I have a few pictures just to kind of give you a sense. I know maps, you know, there are nice lines and everything. This is what the Bothell Service Center used to look like before we moved 522, before we realigned State Route 522 southwards. There was a Papa John's, Quiznos. This is just another view. And then next to it, this is the Wexler site. It was right next to it. This is where I think there must have been a gas station or something, because this is where the soil impacts the petroleum, with petroleum impacts are. This is an after photo. This is just a view, the same view of that Bigfoot Java. And this is what it looks like now. It's just an empty area here. And this is where we're going to be doing the soil excavation and groundwater treatment. And this is Bothell Service Center. It's just basically has a lot of equipment. This is the old ERH system equipment, the one that was hitting the ground and vaporizing the solvent. And yeah. So that ends my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. I will, however, defer any legal questions to our city attorney, and more complicated technical scientific questions to our consultant, who is also here to help out. Thank you.
All right, is there any questions? Councilmember Zorns?
Just a quick question, because this was great to have your overview through this. Did I understand you that there's a 30-day comment period when on our end we feel like everything's been done that can be done, then there's a 30-day comment period? And if nothing substantial comes from there, then the court will rubber stamp and give us approval to move forward and allow us to sell that lot and someone to build on it? Or what happens from there is my question.
What happens from there is that the court the court order, which is the amendment to the consent decree, allows us to implement the requirements of that, the technical requirements. It will allow us to go out there, dig out the soil, clean it up. So it's mostly the technical part. Once that's done, then it's a different department that's doing the marketing. But ultimately, we want this parcel to be ready for sale.
So there's, at the end of that 30-day and the court action, then we go back and just, what you're talking about is just double checking to make sure everything's stabilized, and I guess I'm confused about what's actually happening at the end of those 30 days.
At the end of the 30 days, so the public will have an opportunity to look at, it's a big pile of documents, there are about 6 exhibits in there. They'll have an opportunity to look at those documents, they'll have an opportunity to look at the amendment itself, provide the feedback to Ecology. If Ecology feels that those comments are, you know, as an example, we are proposing to go and dig the dirt, haul it off, and then treat the groundwater. Maybe one of the comments that Ecology considers as substantial is, hey, why can't you do a little bit extra? Maybe inject some compound into the ground or do something else.
Right.
So then they would respond to those comments. I've not gone through this before, but I'm assuming that we would have to go through that whole process of rewriting the documents to incorporate those changes.
Okay.
And then once everybody's on board, then we would go to the court and get everything rubber stamped.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank staff because it's taken a lot of dedication and perseverance over the last 4 years to get to this point, and I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness. I had a couple questions, and they're probably for the city attorney. Could you tell me what PLP stands for?
Potentially liable person or potentially liable party. So anybody that has owned the property that may or may not have contributed to the contamination there is a potentially liable party. So that's, Ecology looks at anyone that could be responsible for the contamination. In this instance, because we purchased it from the Bothell Service Center, they are listed as a potentially liable party because they at one time owned it. But that's the second part of this in the amendment to the agreement. It essentially says that Bothell is going to be responsible for the cleanup of the contamination, even though the former owners are listed as a PLP.
Okay, and that leads very nicely into my second question, which is, can you explain, there's a section called the Covenant to Not Sue, and it talks about having no applicability whatsoever to criminal liability for damages to natural resources in any ecology action, including cost recovery against PLPs. Not a party to this decree. I couldn't sort my brain around that. So could you just explain what that means?
So the nutshell is we've come to an agreement with Ecology that we need to do X, Y, and Z to clean up the property to a certain level. And once we do that, we are then, the reason we file it with the court is that then we're protected against suit. So if we do everything we're supposed to do and there's rogue contamination that spreads beyond the property, we can't be held liable because we did everything we were supposed to do.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you. And this may not be an answer you can give, but maybe somebody else could. I really am concerned about having a timeline that we can realistically say this property would be ready for sale. And do we, with all of the steps we have to take, is that timeline still appropriate? And I thought it was September.
We are at the mercy of the Department of Ecology, and the staff has been dealing with this for 9 years, and so I can guarantee you absolutely nothing. What we continue to do is meet the demands of the Department of Ecology, continue to do everything that they ask of us. Their delays are their delays. That's not in our control. We have been responsive. We submit whatever we need to submit. We make this a priority in our organization. All we're doing is striving to the best of our ability to get this property cleaned up and get it on the market. So I can provide you no assurances, but I can tell you that this is a top priority.
Thank you. And I hope the Department of Ecology hears you as well.
They do, but anybody else have questions or comments? Is there a motion? Do we have to take these one at a time?
They kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
So if you do one and not the other, that's That's not great.
Got it. Deputy Mayor.
I motion to authorize the city manager to enter into an amendment to BSCSS consent decree with the Washington State Department of Ecology to address cleanup of commingled contamination in the Wexler settlement area in substantially the same form as presented, allowing the city to recover some of its costs associated with the Wexler settlement area cleanup, and to also authorize the city manager to sign the second amendment to settlement agreement between the city of Bothell and Bothell Service Center Associates.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and I won't read all that again unless somebody needs me to. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, place your vote. Passes unanimously. And now we are on to AB 19-132, award of construction contract for work on Lot P South. And we have, wow, you don't go anywhere. Good job. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, staff is also bringing forward for council consideration a construction contract with OMA Construction, Inc., out of Maple Valley, Washington. And this contract is in the amount of $2,041,952. And it's for the remediation of the Lot P South site, along with an ordinance amending the 2019-2020 capital budget to fund this work. Staff advertised this contract for bids in July and received 8 responsible bids. After review of the bid proposals, it was determined that the responsible low bidder was OMA Construction, Inc. This construction contract will require a significant amount of environmental oversight to ensure the removal of all remaining contamination on this site and prepare the property for sale. This oversight will be provided by Floyd Snyder, one of the city's on-call environmental consultants. We've been working very, very hard since March of this year just to get this contract ready. Lot P South has had a long history dating back to 2010, when the city first purchased an 18-acre downtown property, prime property, in order to implement its downtown revitalization vision. And what I'm showing here on the screen is an old map that shows the old bus barn and the 18-acre property shown by this black solid line bounding. And originally, this property was known as Lot O. Lot M is now what's currently McManimans. Lot L is currently the Junction, I think. And then Lot K is 6 Oaks Apartments. The city then strategically carved out the 18 acres into separate parcels, which were sold to various developers, like the ones I've mentioned. And out of the original 18 acres, P South is the only remaining 1.2 acre parcel out of the original purchase that remains to be sold because there are some remnant contamination issues. So what the city continued to do was to carve off pieces of Lot O, and the clean portions were sold off to private developers. So the original O boundary, this western portion was clean, so they call it O, new. And then P North was the area north of that Thorsk Street, or 185th, and P South is this area that's bounded by the blue line. I have some photos over here just to show you what it looked like in 2010, and what you see in the background here, this is the old bus barn. This was just the beginning of the excavation. It had grown much bigger than we originally thought. The way these excavations are normally done is the consultants go out there, they do some test bits, some sampling, and they try and develop a footprint for where we start to dig. And as we are digging, we take confirmation samples around the side walls and at the bottom of the excavation. And then if we have to chase that contamination and take it out, we chase it as far as we can. So in 2010, we removed 8,746 tons of dirty soil. In 2014, we came back because we had to stop at the property line, the south property line. We didn't have permission originally to go beyond, because we didn't think the excavation would extend that far. So we worked in collaboration with the North Shore School District, and this picture just is a view looking westwards, and this is the south property line. During that time, we removed 648 tons from the city side and 1,658 tons on the other side of that fence. So the planned excavation under this new contract is the same kind of remedy. It will be digging the soil and exporting it out to a type D landfill. And this is the map that we had in the contract package. What it shows is these gray areas over here. These ones, we have identified them as the minimum excavation areas based on the investigations that were done by our consultant. So these are the areas that we know we absolutely have to go after, these two areas. And what you see here in a hatched line is the original footprint from 2010. So we are going back in the area where we excavated before. So this view, I have a photograph. This view is looking northwards, and back there is Popkini and the new development. And this view is looking westwards. So this is what it looks like. This is the fence line that I was talking about earlier. So the city also enrolled this site in a program known as the Pollution Liability Insurance Agency, or PLIA, in order to obtain environmental oversight and receive a no further action letter from the agency. This no further action letter is similar to the letters that Department of Ecology issues under the voluntary cleanup program. Tonight, staff is recommending the award of this construction contract to OMA Construction to get us closer to our goals of marketing these vacant parcels. This ends my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. But again, I'll defer any legal questions to our city attorney and financial and budget questions to our finance director, and other technical, more scientific questions to our consultant. Thanks.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm so tired of hearing the words ecology and cleanup. Could you explain why we're going back to cleanup? Because I think I think the public deserves to know why. We've already cleaned it up once. Why do we have to go back?
Deputy Mayor, I think I can answer that. So there's still residual contamination, the source of which is currently unknown and is the subject of potential litigation.
Thank you. So the second question is related to the budget. So this $2.5 million was not in our budget, so it's an unexpected expense.
That's correct.
And we did receive money, however, for the other sites, so I assume that kind of mitigates some of the impact of this new expense.
That's right. They're paid for from the same fund, and so there's an offsetting that'll happen.
Okay, super. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Good on this side. Yeah, Councilmember Zorns? Ma'am?
I'm just going to echo what Councilmember Doer and others have said is, and I had mentioned to our city manager yesterday, you can do a lot of finger pointing and how we got to this point, but the reality exists. There's been a cancer in that soil for a long time. And the decision processes that got us to this point, we're all tired of. Everyone's exhausted, and if we're exhausted, I can't imagine how exhausted our city staff is. So I look at what benefits. Horse Creek is I just have a real appreciation for how Horse Creek has tried to hang in there, the salmon that try to use that, because there's no place that Horse Creek has been able to go where it hasn't been impacted by pollution that we've put into the soil over the years. And like council here, we're all looking forward to the time where we can put our dollars into other things. And I just want to thank you for the heroics of sticking in there for so many years to make this happen. We have no idea, no appreciation. And I'm just grateful this has come at a big cost, but I'm grateful for you hefting this load and making it happen and ridding this part of Bothell of this really big toxic problem. So thank you.
If I could correct an earlier statement, I just said that the source of the contamination is unknown, and I think the more correct version is the source of the contamination is the subject of potential litigation, which is why I don't suggest that we discuss it further. So my apologies for the earlier imprecise statement.
And if I could just clarify, when the council member says we, it is not the city who contaminated these parcels. It's we as human beings, so we all take responsibility, but the city purchased these parcels, and we are the ones, the residents of Bothell, the community of Bothell is doing the right thing by the environment in our community by cleaning up these parcels. Had the city not purchased these parcels, this contamination would be in the ground, it would remain in the ground, and be an environmental, have an environmental impact. So yes, it's expensive, and yes, it's taking time, but the council and the community should be very proud of the work that's being done to protect our environment.
All right, Councilmember McAuliffe.
So I just want to be clear, because I hear what you just said. Anyone who purchased the property would have been responsible to clean it up. Is that correct? Anyone? Whether it be a developer or whether it would be, they would all be responsible to clean up the property.
That's correct.
Okay, so I know that we as a city are responsible, but I also, I think I heard you say we as a city are going to do this because it's the right thing to do, but anybody would have to do that.
Right, but we are the ones who purchased the property.
We did.
So other property owners who have purchased property and have come across contamination, they are doing the same thing.
Yes.
We are not exempt from that. So we made the decision to purchase these properties as part of this downtown vision, and so we as the property owners are responsible. It can't be shirked off, it can't be ignored.
Right.
Nothing can happen with these properties until we clean it up.
And I guess that takes me to a further question that I have asked you before, and I just want a little clarity. So if a developer came in and asked to purchase the property and they could be part of the cleanup, is that something that could actually happen?
What we're doing now by committing to these consent decrees is we are committing to do the cleanup. So those opportunities are passing for the properties that we are now cleaning up. I'd have to, I don't know about the remaining properties, potentially, but the value of the property then is significantly lower than it would be if it were clean.
Thank you. I have that. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
I don't want to usurp anybody.
Did somebody did you have comments?
Nope.
No?
No,
Okay.
I do.
No, whoa, okay, just checking.
I'd like to authorize the city manager to enter into a construction contract with OMA Construction, Inc. in the amount of $2,041,952 for construction of Lot P South cleanup, the Lot P South cleanup project, and in substantially the same form as that included with the bid documents. As well, adopt the attached ordinance amending the 2019-2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilmember McNeil. I'll just read it again for fun. Authorize the city manager to enter into a construction contract with OMA Construction Incorporated in the amount of $2,041,952 for construction of the Lot P South cleanup project, and in substantially the same form that is included in the bid document, as well as adopt the attached ordinance amending the 2019-2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget. Is there any discussion on this motion? Councilmember McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the reason why I seconded the motion, and I will be supporting the motion, is because I think it's time that we get our properties cleaned up and get them sold and get the economic development that we so deserve in our downtown core. So I also want to thank the staff for all the hard work and effort that they put into this.
Councilmember McAuliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think I do thank the staff and the endurance that we've had as a city to actually get this cleanup done. But I know it's really important that we put these properties on the market. So I hope Ecology also works with us as well.
All right, I just want to say one thing real quick. I think it's funny. I meet the mayors in the round here once a month, the North End King County mayors, and my report to them is always that Bothell continues to clean up dirty dirt. So they actually care about that in the mayor's circles, but I imagine it's hard as a normal human being just going to meet with your friends, but like, yeah, we're cleaning up dirt still. So I do appreciate everything the staff has done on this, and I look forward to finally seeing these properties clean and off our tax roll. Any further discussion that hasn't already been done? None? Place your vote. Passes unanimously, and we are on to, there we are, executive session for potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I with possible action. So we are going to go to executive session for
30 minutes.
30 minutes. So we'll be back at 7:45 and potentially take action at that time.
Correct.
Session, and is there a motion by a council member?
Yes, I move to approve entry into the SCG settlement substantially as described tonight and go forward with the final settlement.
Second.
It's moved by Councilmember Olson, seconded by Councilmember Zorns, and I can't read that. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, go place your vote. Place your vote again. Oh, we're good. Oh, look at that. Councilor Wilson, you vote in the affirmative?
I vote in the affirmative.
All right, so passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Councilmember Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilmember McAuliffe to adjourn. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, place your vote. Passes 5-2 with Councilmember Agnew and Councilmember McNeil being annoying. See you in September. We're adjourned.